The look Queen Letizia gave Leonor lasted maybe 3 seconds, but honestly, I think the palace knew those 3 seconds would become a global story. Because it wasn't anger in the dramatic Hollywood sense. It was worse. It looked controlled, cold, the kind of expression a mother gives when she's trying not to react publicly even though something behind the scenes clearly crossed a line. And the strange part, Leonor barely reacted at all. That's what made the moment feel so uncomfortable. Not because we know exactly what happened, but because both of them suddenly looked less like royals and more like a real family under pressure. And I think people felt that instantly. Now obviously, nobody outside the palace truly knows whether Queen Letizia is genuinely furious with Princess Leonor right now. A lot of royal coverage exaggerates tension for clicks. But here's where I think this story becomes fascinating. The public doesn't care about the exact argument. They care about what the tension symbolizes. Because Leonor is changing, fast, and every time a future queen starts becoming more independent, conflict inside royal families almost always follows. Not necessarily because of hatred, but because power, image, and control start shifting. That's the real story here. If you're new to Leonor's story, subscribe, I post every day. Because honestly, the relationship between Queen Letizia and Princess Leonor may become one of the most important dynamics shaping the future of the Spanish monarchy over the next few years, and I don't think enough people are talking about the emotional pressure behind it. Now let's talk about something most headlines completely miss. Queen Letizia is not just Leonor's mother. She's also the architect of Leonor's public image. That changes everything. People forget Letizia came into the monarchy as an outsider. She wasn't raised royal. She understands media pressure differently from traditional royals because she actually worked in journalism before becoming queen. That experience made her hyper-aware of optics, narratives, body language, headlines, all of it. Honestly, I think Letizia watches public perception like a military strategist. Which means if Leonor starts stepping outside carefully planned expectations, even slightly, tension becomes inevitable. And lately, Leonor absolutely feels different, more independent, more self-directed, less managed. You can see it in tiny moments. The pauses before answering questions. The more confident posture. The occasional emotional distance during official events. That's not rebellion exactly. It's separation. And separation is emotionally difficult in any family, especially one where the future of an entire monarchy is involved. Here's my hot take. I don't think Letizia is furious because Leonor is misbehaving. I think she's terrified of losing influence over her. Huge difference. Because once royal heirs become adults emotionally, parental authority starts competing with institutional authority. Advisors get closer. Military mentors become influential. Public opinion starts shaping decisions too. Suddenly the heir isn't just somebody's child anymore. They become a national figure. And honestly, that transition can quietly break family dynamics apart. We've seen versions of this in almost every royal household globally. Even Prince William reportedly experienced moments where royal duty began reshaping personal relationships inside the family structure. The institution eventually changes how people communicate with each other. And Spain may be entering that phase with Leonor now. But here's what makes this story even more interesting. I actually think Queen Letizia's strictness helped create the version of Leonor people admire today. That discipline didn't appear magically. The composure, the professionalism, the controlled emotional reactions, the ability to survive intense public attention. That came from years of pressure and preparation. So now we're watching a strange emotional paradox happen in real time. The very strength Letizia helped build inside Leonor may now be making Leonor harder to control. And honestly, that happens in normal families too. Parents spend years teaching confidence and independence, then struggle emotionally once their children actually become independent. Only this situation is amplified by cameras, politics, monarchy, and global attention. Now let me say something controversial. I think some of the tension headlines may actually be encouraged indirectly by palace insiders themselves. Not because they want scandal. Because conflict humanizes royals. Think about it. Modern audiences connect more with emotional realism than perfection. If Leonor and Letizia appear too polished all the time, people emotionally disconnect. The family starts feeling artificial. But tiny glimpses of tension. Those moments make audiences lean forward. They create discussion, analysis, debate, emotional investment. It's the same reason people obsess over body language clips online now. And honestly, the internet has changed royal storytelling completely. 20 years ago, a brief facial expression at an event would disappear instantly. Now, millions of people slow it down frame by frame on TikTok. That changes how monarchies operate. Every glance becomes content. Every gesture becomes theory. And I think Queen Letizia understands that better than almost anyone in Europe right now. Which is why her reactions always feel incredibly measured, even during uncomfortable moments. But here's where I think the emotional truth might actually be hiding. Queen Letizia may not be angry at Leonor. She may be angry at what Leonor's future requires. Because the closer Leonor gets to the throne, the less normal their relationship can remain. That's the hidden tragedy of monarchy nobody talks about enough. At some point, the institution starts taking your child away from you emotionally. Not literally, psychologically. The future queen becomes public property in a way. And I genuinely wonder if Letizia feels that happening already. There are moments lately where Leonor seems emotionally older than her age. More guarded, more strategic, less spontaneous. That transformation probably reassures Spain politically. But as a mother, I can imagine it feeling heartbreaking too. Especially because Letizia knows exactly how brutal the media can become once Leonor's personal life fully enters adulthood. Relationships, friendships, rumors, independence, potential scandals. Every future decision Leonor makes will carry international consequences. And honestly, I think Letizia's intensity comes partly from fear. Fear of mistakes. Fear of public backlash. Fear of history repeating itself. Remember, European monarchies survived years of scandals, crises, and collapsing public trust. Every royal parent today understands how quickly public opinion can turn. That pressure creates control, and sometimes control creates tension. Now here's another thing I noticed. Whenever Leonor appears beside her mother recently, there's this subtle energy shift happening. Leonor no longer looks like she's asking for approval. That's important. Because psychologically, that's usually the first sign a public figure is developing internal authority. And once that happens, the relationship changes forever. It becomes less parent and child, more queen and future queen. That dynamic is emotionally complicated even if they deeply love each other. Actually, especially if they deeply love each other. Because expectations become enormous. And here's where comparisons with Kate Middleton become interesting too. Kate's public image in Britain is built heavily around warmth, family stability, and emotional softness. Queen Letizia's image feels much sharper, more disciplined, more perfection-focused. That creates a completely different atmosphere around Leonor's upbringing. Spain's monarchy doesn't feel like a fairy tale brand anymore. It feels like a high-performance institution. And honestly, that's probably intentional. If Mr. Beast were managing royal PR, weird comparison, I know, he'd probably say modern audiences trust visible effort more than polished fantasy. That's exactly what Spain keeps emphasizing with Leonor: training, discipline, sacrifice, preparation. But the hidden cost of high-performance environments is emotional strain. Always. And maybe that's why people are suddenly obsessing over every tiny interaction between Letizia and Leonor. They're searching for signs of pressure underneath the perfection. Because modern audiences no longer believe flawless images. They believe micro-expressions, awkward pauses, emotional slips. Ironically, the more controlled royals become, the more intensely people search for cracks underneath. Now personally, I don't think Queen Letizia and Leonor are heading toward some dramatic royal collapse. Actually, I think the opposite. I think this tension may be evidence that Leonor is finally stepping into real adulthood. And adulthood changes family relationships permanently. Especially in royal systems where personal identity and public duty constantly collide. The problem is, the world watches every stage of that transformation in real time. That pressure must be exhausting. Imagine arguing with your mother, then realizing millions of strangers are analyzing your facial expression afterward. That's not normal human life. And sometimes I wonder if people forget that when discussing royal families online. At the center of all this symbolism, strategy, and public analysis, there's still a mother trying to protect her daughter. And a daughter trying to become her own person. That conflict is timeless. The only difference is that for Queen Letizia and Princess Leonor, the entire world is watching it happen frame by frame. And honestly, that's probably the real reason the tension feels so intense lately.